There's one question I hear more often than any other. It usually sounds something like this. What if the market crashes right after I invest? People ask it in a whisper, as if even saying it out loud might bring bad luck. They read the news, see headlines about recessions, banking crises, geopolitics, and their hand freezes over the buy button. They wait for weeks, months, sometimes years, waiting for a better moment that they believe will surely come. I used to think that way too, and I waited. Until I did one simple thing. I sat down and studied every major market crash starting from 1929. Not superficially, not just a paragraph in an article. I went deep. Numbers, timelines, psychology, the press of the time, what experts were saying, what ordinary people were feeling. And when I did that, I saw something that changed my view of the market forever. I saw a pattern. One. A single pattern. It repeats in every crash, without exception. And today, I'm going to tell it to you in a way you've never heard before. But first, an important disclaimer. What you're about to hear is not financial advice. It's not a call to buy or sell. It's a lesson from history. One most people either don't know or know but don't truly feel. Because knowing and feeling are two completely different things. And my goal today is not just for you to understand this pattern intellectually, but to feel it on a deeper level. Let's start from the very beginning, with the most devastating crash in modern financial history. 1929. The Roaring Twenties in America were years of euphoria. The economy was growing, stocks were rising. Everyone, literally everyone, was buying stocks. Taxi drivers were giving tips on which shares to buy. Housewives were trading on margin. Newspapers wrote that America had discovered the formula for permanent prosperity. President Hoover claimed poverty would soon disappear entirely. It was a true collective madness of optimism. And then, in October 1929, it all collapsed. First, down 20% in 2 days. Then the market bounced a little and people sighed with relief. But that recovery turned out to be a trap. What followed was a real decline that lasted 3 years. By 1932, the Dow Jones had lost 89% of its peak value. 89%. People who had $100 in stocks were left with $11. Banks were closing. Unemployment reached 25%. It was the Great Depression. What did most people feel at that moment? A deep conviction that the market would never recover. Newspapers wrote about the end of capitalism. Serious economists argued that the old model was broken forever. People who held stocks sold them in fear and shame and swore never again. Never. But the market recovered. Completely. And then it went on to set new highs. Those who bought at the darkest moment in 1932 and had the patience to wait were rewarded with extraordinary returns. That's the first iteration of the pattern. Panic, bottom, recovery, new high. Remember that sequence. It will come back. Fast forward. 1973 to 1974. The oil crisis. OPEC declares an embargo. Oil prices quadruple. Inflation in the U.S. exceeds 10%. For the first time in decades, the American economy feels like an external force can control its destiny. The market falls 48% in 2 years. The headlines from that time are something else. The end of the American century. The age of oil is over. Stagflation is killing the middle class. Economists had to invent a new word, stagflation, because the old ones no longer describe the scale of the problem. Investors fled into gold, real estate, cash, anywhere but stocks. And again, the market recovered. Completely. And again, it set new highs. Panic, bottom. Recovery, new high. 1987. Black Monday, October 19th. One day. A 22% drop in the Dow Jones in a single trading session. Still a record. The largest one-day percentage drop in the history of the U.S. stock market. Traders on Wall Street were crying on the trading floor. The U.S. Treasury Secretary went on live television trying to calm the markets and only made the panic worse. Some analysts spoke of the beginning of a new Great Depression, and yet within 2 years the market had fully recovered. Within four, it reached a new high. Panic, bottom, recovery, new high. I know you're starting to see the pattern, but I don't just want you to see it. I want you to feel what stood behind each of these crashes. Because every single time the market was falling, it felt like this time was different. That this time really was the end, that the old rules no longer worked, and every time, that feeling was wrong. The 1990s. The tech boom. The internet changes everything. Companies with no profits, no revenue, not even a clear business model are worth billions. The Nasdaq rises tenfold in 5 years. Everyone talks about a new economy where the old rules of valuation no longer apply. Venture capitalists throw money around. IPOs deliver 200% gains on the first day of trading. And then the dot-com bubble bursts. From March 2000 to October 2002, the Nasdaq loses 78%. 78%. Trillions of dollars in market capitalization vanish. Thousands of companies go bankrupt. People who put their retirement savings into tech stocks lose most of what they had built. Once again, headlines declare the end of an era. Once again, there's a conviction that this time, it's permanent. And once again, the market recovers. Again, new highs. Panic, bottom, recovery, new high. But the next crash was probably the most painful of all, because it didn't just affect those who traded stocks. It affected nearly every family in America and a large part of the world. 2007 to 2009. The housing crisis, the subprime mortgage crisis. Lehman Brothers, one of the oldest investment banks in the world, files for bankruptcy. At the time, it was the largest corporate bankruptcy in U.S. history. Insurance giant AIG teeters on the edge of collapse. The government steps in to bail out banks and insurers with taxpayer money. People are forced out of their homes because they can't pay their mortgages. Unemployment surges to 10%. The S&P 500 drops 57% in just 16 months. Half. More than half. Those who had money in market-linked retirement funds watch their savings get cut in half. And they don't just watch. They panic sell. They exit. They say, better to save what's left. Do you know what happened next? The market recovered. Fully recovered by 2013. And by 2020, it had grown fourfold from the bottom of the crisis. Those who sold at the bottom locked in their losses and missed one of the greatest recoveries in history. Those who bought during the panic earned returns they had never imagined. Panic, bottom, recovery, new high. And now, the most psychologically interesting crash of them all. Not because it was the biggest, but because it happened so fast that many people didn't even have time to be afraid. February to March 2020, COVID-19. In just 33 days, the S&P 500 falls 34%. 33 days. Never before had the market dropped so quickly. Airports are empty. Stores are closed. People wear masks. Uncertainty is total. No one knows how long the pandemic will last. No one knows whether normal economic life will even return. Entire industries come to a halt. And what did most retail investors do? Exactly, sold. They exited, locked in losses, locked in. Once again, afraid that this time, it's different. That a pandemic isn't a typical economic crisis, but something fundamentally new that the market won't recover from. The market bottomed on March 23, 2020, and by the end of August, it had already fully recovered. By the end of the year, it was at new highs. Those who managed to buy at the bottom gained around 50% in just 5 months. Those who sold in panic were left with realized losses and disbelief at how quickly the market had recovered. Panic, bottom, recovery, new high. These are your 6 crashes, and in all 6, the same exact sequence. But I want you to pause for a second and ask yourself, if I had lived through each of those moments, what would I have done? Honestly, reading the headlines, watching my account drop, listening to experts on TV, what would I have done? Most likely, you would have sold, like the majority, because in each of those moments it felt completely rational, even necessary, to sell. Panic isn't weakness. Panic is a normal human response to danger. Our brains are evolutionarily wired to react to threats. See danger, run. And when your investment account turns red and loses tens of percent, your brain interprets it as a real threat to survival. The problem is that in financial markets, running means losing. Because when you run, you lock in losses and step out of the game at exactly the moment the market begins to recover. You get the worst possible outcome: losses on the way out and missed gains on the recovery. There's a well-known study by Dalbar that analyzes the real behavior of retail investors. It shows that the average investor significantly underperforms the market, not because they pick bad stocks, but because they buy and sell at the wrong times. They buy when they feel optimistic, after prices have risen. They sell when they're afraid, during declines, again and again, generation after generation. And this brings us to the key point. If the pattern repeats in every crash, panic, bottom, recovery, new high, then the pattern itself is an investment strategy. Not in theory, in practice. What does that mean? It means that in moments of panic, when everyone around you is selling, when headlines scream about the end of the world, when your account shows minus 30% or minus 50%, that is exactly when the market is offering you its best prices. This is not a call to catch the exact bottom. Catching the bottom is impossible and unnecessary. This is a call simply not to sell, and if possible, to buy more. But I understand it's easy to say, much harder to do. Because in the middle of a crash, knowing this pattern intellectually is not enough. You have to believe in it. And for that, you need one thing that we have right now: the awareness that every single time before, without exception, the market has recovered. Let's make this even more concrete. Imagine a person who invested $10,000 in an S&P 500 index fund in October 1929, 1 week before the crash. The worst possible timing in the entire financial history of the 20th century. They watch their investment fall to $1,100. They hold. They don't sell. They just hold. By 1954, 25 years later, their investment fully recovers and begins to generate real profit. 25 years is a long time, but first, no one consistently invested at the exact worst moment of such a massive crash. Second, the investment survived. It recovered. Now imagine another person with the same $10,000 who invested in the first index fund in 1957 and simply held it until today, through every crisis, every crash, every headline about the end of the world, without ever selling. That $10,000 would be worth millions today, simply because that person didn't panic. This isn't magic, it's math. It's the power of compound interest, and it only works if you give it time. And time is the only thing you can control in investing. Not the market, not the economy, not geopolitics. Only time and your behavior during a crisis. But there's another important point that people rarely talk about. The pattern, panic, bottom, recovery, new high, doesn't just describe what happens. It explains why it happens. Markets fall for one main reason: human emotions. Fear spreads faster than anything else. When people see others selling, they sell too. When everyone sells, prices fall below any rational level. Companies that generate real profits, real products, real services suddenly trade below the value of their assets. It's irrational, but it happens again and again. And then, someone notices that irrationality. Large institutional players with patience and a long-term horizon begin to buy. Prices rise slightly. Fear eases. More buyers return. Prices rise further. The market recovers, not because the problem disappears, but because prices fell below their true value and have a natural path back up. That's why the pattern repeats. Not because the market is kind or fair, but because the market is made of people. And people under stress behave predictably. They oversell in panic and overpay in euphoria. If you understand this pattern, you know more than most market participants at any given moment. Now, I want to say something important. This pattern is not a guarantee. It doesn't mean every individual stock will recover. Some companies go bankrupt and never come back. What it does mean is that broadly diversified markets, like the S&P 500 and broad index funds, have historically recovered from every crash over long time horizons. This is not a prediction about the future. It's a description of what has happened in the past over more than a century, and that distinction matters. You can't know exactly what will happen this time, but you can know that every time before, without exception, the market has recovered. And that knowledge should change how you behave in the next crisis, because there will be another crisis. Absolutely, I don't know when. No one does, but it will happen. The market will fall again. Headlines will once again declare the end of the world. Experts will once again say that this time is different. And if you're prepared, psychologically prepared because you understand and feel this pattern, you won't sell at the bottom. And maybe, if you have the courage and the resources, you'll even buy. I want to end with one observation that always strikes me when I think about these 6 crashes together. In each of them, the people who panicked and sold believed they were doing the rational thing. They were protecting themselves, saving what was left, responding to real danger with real action. And those who held, and especially those who bought during the panic, were not fearless. They were afraid too. But they had one extra thing: knowledge of what had happened before. They thought not in weeks or months, but in years and decades. They understood that the current pain is temporary, that panic will pass, that a bottom will form, that recovery will come, that a new high is possible. This pattern, panic, bottom, recovery, new high, is not just a financial formula. It's a lesson that time and patience in investing are worth more than any knowledge about a specific market or a specific stock. It's a lesson that the most dangerous enemy of an investor is not the market, it's their own emotions in moments of fear. So the next time you see a red screen and feel the urge to sell everything and run, remember 1929, remember 73, remember 87, remember 2000, remember 2008, remember 2020. Remember that every single time, without exception, those who held won, and those who sold at the bottom regretted it. The pattern exists. It's real. It repeats. And if you remember it at the moment when it's hardest, that is the investment strategy that truly matters. If this video was helpful, hit like. Not because that's what people say at the end, but because the algorithm will show it to someone staring at a red portfolio right now, not knowing what to think. Maybe these numbers will help someone avoid a bad decision at a bad moment. See you in the next video.